Broadcasting deep from the basement bunker. Welcome back to the fourth hour. It's great to have you along this morning. So, we've got more that we're learning of the JFK assassination files. There are a number of things that I want to share with you. Elon Musk was on Hannity. Did you watch Elon Musk on Hannity last night? I'd appreciate what were the things that caught your attention. In fact, let's start with that because there is a story at foxnews.com this morning. And I failed to mention this on the program this morning. Elon Musk talking about going up to get the astronauts from the space station. And he's saying that despite what you hear from, the Biden administration and from others, Elon Musk is saying, we definitely offered to return the astronauts earlier. There's no question about that. Elon Musk said the astronauts were only supposed to be there for 8 days, and they've been there for about almost 10 months. So obviously that doesn't make any sense. SpaceX could have brought the astronauts back after a few months at most, and we made that offer to the Biden administration. It was rejected for political reasons, and that's just a fact, he says. So what the political reasons may have been, I'm not. I think the Biden administration just didn't want to mess with it. Biden's presidency was a disaster, and they were trying to win an election, and it's just. But that's what Elon Musk said during that interview last night. Any of you watch it? Just curious. It's just too late for me. I wound up. I saw some of Donald Trump's interview with Laura Ingraham last night. And I think I actually was viewing this on one of the, there's a Fox News channel that you can subscribe to for that's free and no charge. And they chop up interviews and so on, and you can view them. And so portions of the president's interview with Laura Ingraham, I think were actually available before the interview actually aired. So I watched a portion of it, and I thought, I've got to come back and find some more of this. Also, this morning, we are seeing the president is not backing off let's go to his True Social account. We were talking about this judge and about impeaching judges. And so now the president said this, and I'm sorry I didn't catch this morning. Donald Trump's True Social account will, starting tomorrow, be one of the first things that I check each morning. I want to see what the president has said. And it'll be one of the last things I check before I go on the air. Because this is Trump's way of communicating with you and me, is via True Social. So the president says, if a president doesn't have the right to throw murderers and other criminals out of our country because of a radical left lunatic judge wants to assume the role of president, then our country is in very big trouble and destined to fail. And this is what we talked about a little bit this morning, the president and this judge. And then look at this. This is the president also shared this. It's a post from Liz Harrington, about this Judge Chutkan, rather, excuse me. How about a full list of the people that Chutkan reports to? Same judge who tried to put President Trump in jail, trying to protect government corruption. I expect to see a lot more of that. That you've got these people that are out there, and what they're trying to do, they're trying to slow Trump down, trying to impede progress, and trying to protect corruption. And we'll see how far we get. I wonder, I have already been asking this question. How far is Donald Trump actually going to get? You're moving through the courts, because the president has been very clear that he will abide by court rulings. He'll fight court rulings, but he will abide by these court rulings. He's made that very, very clear. I think that's lost on some, and because of the way he responds and calling this judge radical left, lunatic judge. But he is appealing, and he is playing within the. And Laura Ingraham asked him about this several times about, well, you may find yourself at the end of your term, by the time these actually work their way through the courts. And the president just really seems undeterred by that and moving forward. Also, the JFK assassination files are a big story this week. And this is the New York Post. What have they revealed so far? I think this is going to be one of those stories where information is going to trickle out, fairly slowly. 80,000 pages? 80,000 pages, that's a lot of material to review. The New York Post is reporting, I've not looked at this in detail. So what are they finding? Some interesting snippets being poured over include documents shedding light on theories, eyeing a small clique in the CIA being involved, as well as an apparent KGB investigation to find out if Lee Harvey Oswald was, in fact, one of their agents. Memo dated June 1967 details how a former Army intelligence officer fled Washington, D.C., very agitated the day after Kennedy was shot, spoke with a friend about how a small clique within the CIA was behind the assassination. I have long believed that something like this may, in fact, be true. We'll have to wait and see. The memo says he was very agitated, and then the small clique, he said, was responsible. He was afraid for his life and probably would have to leave the country. Less than 6 months later, Underhill was found shot to death in his Washington apartment. The coroner ruled it a suicide. Right. Suicide. Yeah, right. Let's see what else they're finding here. A lot of this is about Underhill's suicide. In another document released, a teletype U.S. intelligence report said a KGB official named Nikonov investigated whether Oswald had been a KGB agent. And he was confident that Oswald was at no time an agent controlled by the KGB. He doubted that anyone could control Oswald, but noted that the KGB watched him closely and constantly while he was in Russia. Also noted that Oswald was a poor shot when he tried target firing in the USSR. Oswald had a stormy relationship with his Soviet wife, who wrote him incessantly. So Oswald is, a veteran of the Marine Corps. So apparently some of the documents shed light on the intelligence community's machinations in the 1960s. One document describes how the CIA was tracking a Cuban national who was sent to Cuba before establishing a network of at least 20 people who helped draw up over 50 reports. And some of those then presented to the Warren Commission. See, this is where I think these documents, it's going to take a lot of time to pour through this stuff. Just going to take a lot of time. I think that's where it ends. So that's a story at the New York Post, as we follow up on what may have happened there. I'm curious as to what information is going to come out of that. I want to close this window. There we go. Let me pull up this one. Let's go to the post-millennial. As we were talking about some near the end of the program this morning, I was sharing news about Elon Musk's response to really the domestic terrorism is what it is. That's what Pam Bondi's calling it. Domestic terrorism that's occurring at these Tesla dealerships. And so here's a story from the post-millennial. Trans-identified male charged with vandalizing this Tesla service center in the Chicago area. And it's Andy No who is on top of that story. He's done some excellent reporting. Andy No has done so much more than the legacy media has on a host of different subjects. I have mentioned his name a number of times over the years. So Andy No is breaking the details on that. Again, more reporting there. And as we were talking about Pam Bondi and domestic terrorism, that's what it is, she says. The swarm of violent attacks on Tesla property, nothing short of domestic terrorism. The Department of Justice has already charged several perpetrators with that in mind, including in cases that involve charges with 5-year mandatory minimum sentences. We'll continue investigations that impose severe consequences on those involved in these attacks, including those operating behind the scenes to coordinate and fund these crimes. I am very, very interested in learning who those people are. It's just incredible as you watch a lot of that, I think, unfold. Okay, I'm going to dive into the comments here and see. A good morning to all of you, by the way. Always nice to have you along. Hey, John, I haven't responded to your email yet. Thank you for the email you sent me yesterday. Incredibly. Some of you were just so incredibly nice to me. You can drop me an email anytime. greg.belfrage@kelo.com is my email address. John, thank you for that. That's worth giving you a shout out, my friend. Some very nice things that you were saying. And keep in mind, sometimes I poke fun at myself rather than at other people. Sometimes you can't help but poke fun at other people as well, especially given the bizarro world we live in currently. You got to poke some fun at other people, but I just find it easier to poke fun at myself. Denise is saying she watched Hannity on YouTube this morning. What were the big takeaways for you, Denise? I'd love to know what your big takeaways were. Steve here is saying that he thinks Justice Roberts shouldn't have weighed in at all. Makes the idea of a neutral court hard to see. Totally agree with that. Totally agree. A lot of you are visiting about the weather. I know it's. I got up this morning and I thought, what am I going to find? Is there going to be snow? There was talk of flurries overnight in the early morning hours, and it was just fine. Edgy, the tricky part about the Kennedy assassination is that he had so many powerful enemies, and all of them had reason to want him dead. I agree with that. I absolutely agree. Steve is saying, of course, I was talking here about Oswald. Of course, the KGB watched him. He's a Marine that suddenly wants to live in Russia. I'd be suspicious if they didn't keep an eye on him. I totally agree. There were things that were going on there. Steve, who would have guessed? A mentally ill person operating as a domestic terrorist. Yeah. Oh, Edgy's wait. We were talking about Rosie's this morning. Just got to say, I'm going to miss Rosie's. Yeah, me too. Although I would have to say generally, my hours stink. I come to work early in the morning and generally I'm leaving the office by 1 or 1:30. And my day is done. So I'm here by 4 a.m. I'm out by 1 p.m., generally speaking. there aren't a lot of people that are free at the same hours that I'm free. Like, so maybe I might be able to hook up for lunch with a friend, and that fair and generally, by 2 o'clock, they're looking at their watch and saying, "Yeah, I got to get going. I got to take off," and we totally appreciate that. But there just are not a lot of people who are free in the afternoon, and those are the hours that I have free. So going to Rosie's generally, unless you want to go eat by yourself, I have trouble doing. I've done it. I have done it, but I have trouble going to a restaurant by myself because then I feel like I'm out there begging for sympathy. It's like, okay, look at me. I'm out here having dinner by myself. I don't know why that bothers me. It shouldn't. It should. I have done it, but it just I haven't been there in a very long time. Um, what's Corey saying? Thank you, Corey. Nothing will happen to these people that are destroying these Tesla dealerships. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith because either, and I totally share your concerns here, because that's what we're seeing. We see these. We know that George Soros has funded a number of these judges. That's a fact. That he was funding their campaigns and so on. So we know it's George Soros and the left that has been funding a lot of that nonsense. And that's why I think you heard from callers this morning. And again, there was a lot of division among callers. And I kind of enjoy days like that when I'm hearing from callers with various different points of view as to whether the president should be fired or calling on this judge and saying he should be impeached, and a lot of differences of opinion. And I think it was a huge mistake for the Chief Justice to weigh in on that, because again, assuming that at some point that works its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, now Chief Justice is already on the record. And I think that's a lot of what we see happening, unfortunately, that we've got justices at various levels who are not being guided by the law. They are being guided, by their beliefs rather than by the law. And the country cannot continue that way. Not as the United States. It just simply cannot continue that way when you see that kind of thing happening. Judge Chutkan is a great example. I mean, she is just absolutely unbelievable, and she's one of those out there, back trying to go after Trump again. So it really is tiresome. I know some are saying you just got to let the process go forward. I wrestle with that. I think I was pretty candid about that this morning, but I really want to thank all of you for your thoughts on that, as to what we see moving forward. Is really kind of anyone's guess. Let's leave it there. That's a wrap from the bunker today. Thanks for being my gallery of champions. I really appreciate it. You can do me an additional favor by hitting that like button before you leave. I'll see you again tomorrow. I'm out of here.